This tutorial is going to be for the appointment and how to set up an appointment. We're going to walk through that now. Let's start by actually clicking on a day or date that we want to assign an appointment. Now this is very important. For example, if you're going to assign a different day than the current date, you would use the calendar over here to modify the date that you're viewing. If you click on the calendar, you'll notice that it turns blue, which means that you're not on the current date. If you're on the current date, that would be the green. For example, this is April the 24th. If I click on it, I'm now looking at April the 24th. Now, a little understanding about how this works. If you're going to assign a rental and it's a reservation and it's in the future, you would go to that date, whatever it would be, and assign that reservation for something that's coming in the future. If a person walks up to the counter today and you're going to assign a today appointment, you would pick the green field for the date that you're actually looking on, which is the current date, or you can click this dot here, which will go to the current date to add a new appointment. So let's add a new appointment and see how you add that to the application. So let's go down and click on the New button, and you'll notice what it'll do is it'll bring up a new second window. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an appointment. Now, if you're doing this for a person that has been there before, you could use this drop down to pick their name and their company from the drop down. If they're a new person, what you're going to do is you're going to do a rental, and you have the option to change the way that this is set up, but it's up to you. And in this particular case, I'm going to put a name, and I'm going to put Mary Smith. And then I'm going to go ahead. In this case, I cannot assign it because they're not a part of the booking system yet, but we would be adding that, and I'll cover that in the video on how to add the person into the booking screen. And then you would come back and select them in these two areas. If they're just a customer and they don't have a company, you would add them as far as a customer without a company. If this is a rental, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to set this to the status type of rental. You're going to click in the rental calendar so that this rental would be added to the rental calendar. The next thing you're going to do is assign a priority. And in most cases, it would be a moderate or normal, medium, or it'd be a high, depending on if it's a urgent need. But in most cases, it's just a normal. So let's just say low priority. And the next thing you'll see, it pops over to the date. Now you have the option to select the default dates that are in here. Now, if this person is going to rent and they tell you that they're going to have it for 24 hours, you would use the next drop-down calendar to put in the next date. Now, if you're walking in and this is the way you run your business, if the person is renting it and it's 11 o'clock in the morning, I would add in here 11 a.m. And if it's 24 hours that they're going to be using it, it would be 11 that they would be bringing it back as far as the time that they would be bringing it back to complete the rental, and that would be also 11 a.m. You have the ability over here to add custom fields if you wanted to. There's some that are in there right now, booked, pending, and you can add a second narrative in here if you needed it. And these are just things that where you want to mark the record. You can edit this list by clicking edit and adding to that list. Now on the iPad, anything that has a roller or an iPhone, you cannot edit the screens unless those items have in the actual title, like this, an underline. And what that does, the underline under a title item for a field has another screen that allows you to edit even on the iPad or those devices like the iPhone. You can edit those fields and add information that would then be added to the scrollers. That's very important to understand that because sometimes it can be very difficult to use an application that does not have the ability to edit those. So what we've done to this point is we've set up the appointment, the times, we've assigned it. Now there's an estimation over here that is used for to-dos and other things that will be covered later. If this is a repeating appointment where somebody comes back the same days every month for the same kind of a appointment where they would rent something or do something, you can click repeating, and you can use either every third day, second day, 12th day, whatever, or months, weeks, or years. That probably wouldn't be used by most people, but it is available to you. If you're on the server, and this is a very important thing, if you're on the server requires that when you're logged in on the server, to submit or cancel this information as you are finished using it. For example, the information I just added, if I were on the server and I'm all done adding information, I would click submit. What that does is it sends it to the server to update the server. And it adds that information as far as permanently putting it into the application. So these fields would be saved. Now let's talk about the area down toward the bottom of the screen. For each item that has been rented, there's a status as far as those things are concerned. And for example, the number of items that you have would be shown here, and as they are returned, they would go off the screen. So if an item has to be delivered, or in this case, you can change the status in this area to available, deliver, in service, pending, rented, replaced, or returned. You can change the status and it updates the equipment availability in the other side of the application. Now the other fields in here, if you notice, if you click on it, are not editable. And the reason for that is we don't want you editing this information in this area. You need to go to the end of the row for that particular item you want to edit and click this icon. Now this information is added when you book a new client within the other side of the application and you set up the actual rental and assign the piece of equipment, and it's done by equipment and serial number, and it automatically figures the duration for the amount of days, weeks, months, or whatever. And you would do that by adding the date of the rental, the time start, the date it's going to be returned, and you can wait or do the date return if you know it's going to be picked up by yourself. And then this includes the client that was actually the person that did this rental. So this is a running accounting of all of the transactions that are done on the booking side of the application, where if you come back, you can compare the calendar information, for example, in this case, and we're doing a new booking. Once this booking is set up on the other side of the application, it will be shown here. And it'll be shown for the type of equipment or items that you might have assigned. It may be one or more items assigned to that particular booking. Now, in this case, let's go to the next thing, and this is the availability of items. If you're in this screen and you want to know what is available, all items that you've entered in the equipment inventory would be shown here. And these are static in that they would stay, each item would be listed alphabetically, and they would be shown in here. And there are a couple items that are standard items that you use for billing that are put on the billing screen that will show up here, but they're not actually equipment, where all these items would be equipment. When you actually go to the other side of the application by clicking at the end of the row on this icon, you can edit this information in white, but in this screen you can actually affect a change here. For example, if you want to assign a piece of equipment or pieces of equipment to this particular record, you could go in to the record, click this icon at the end of the row, and change the availability within this screen. If you wanted to come back, you could come back to the equipment appointment that we were just showing you by edit appointment, and it would return you to this screen so that you can come back and finish the appointment. Now there's also a booking aspect that we'll talk about later when we move from this screen into the booking. Once again, keep in mind that if you're using this application, you have to submit before you leave any screen if you're on the server. On an iPad or a phone device or whatever, as long as it's not on the server, directly on the server through a browser, you do not have to submit. You just move between the fields and then move to the next screen, and it saves it on the fly. There is a to-do records list in here where you can describe a to-do thing, and these are optional items for the appointment on the calendar to indicate that there are things that need to be done as far as this appointment. There's a thing called an appointment sub where you can assign it other things that you need to do. For example, say this is a wedding, and there are things that the delivery person is supposed to be doing under the to-do and the sub-appointment information, And then there's also a work log where you can take and track the time spent for the hours that the person was assigned, where they went out and actually did work on the site, if you're going to be charging for those kinds of services. So those are all included in the calendar appointment, and then they would be put onto the billing within the other side of the application as to items that you're going to bill for. The way you add those is by clicking the plus sign and adding a new work log item. Okay, and these are all done either in the new appointment, and as these screens change between, there are 3 of them. There's a new appointment, there's a view appointment, and an edit appointment. Once you establish the current screen and the new one, it will then return to the edit appointment screen. Or if you're just going to view it from the main screen, it will show as a view. But you can make transactions and edits in this screen anytime you want to. Now, as I said before, you have technical support. If you have questions, you can either send an email, or you can contact us by phone, or you can ask for a tour of any screen where I'll take you through the screen and explain it step by step. This tutorial is intended to assist you in completing and learning how to use the application. One last thing before we leave. The completed button is used when you complete a transaction and somebody has returned the item. You would click this record as completed. On the calendar, what it'll do is draw a line through the title name indicating that it's completed, and it will show that it's completed. If you wanted to delete this, say for example you made mistakes and you don't want to do it, or a client walks away at the counter, you can click delete and it'll take that particular appointment away. And you can see up here that the video that you're viewing was started by clicking this icon at the top of the screen. Thank you for taking this tutorial. I hope this was helpful.